everything started to change when I started to ask what is actually in our food. I was shocked when I read the ingredients. So I started making these simple swaps, and my kids didn't even miss the store-bought versions. Today, I'm going to show you how to ditch the store-bought nuggets for homemade, the taco kits for real food tacos your kids will actually love, and you can ditch that Red Baron pizza and be the baroness of your own world, making your own homemade sourdough pizza crust. I feel like every normal American mom used to rely on taco kits. My kids love tacos. It is a staple in our household. But unfortunately, if you look at the actual ingredients in the Old El Paso tacos, the first ingredient is maltodextrin. I'm not even going to get into the rest of them. But when you're putting that seasoning on there, do you have maltodextrin in your cabinets? Because I don't. If you look up a quick Google search of what maltodextrin can do to the body, it says that it may cause weight gain and that it has zero nutritional value. It's basically a filler and a preservative to increase the volume of the taco seasoning and let it last longer on your shelf. But chances are you have all the ingredients you need to make taco seasoning at home without the maltodextrin and other unnecessary ingredients like vegetable oil, silicon dioxide, which is a caking agent, and which is a preservative. So these are things that we do not need in the taco seasoning. And I haven't even mentioned the tortillas yet. And I'm going to save the whole story for another time because this is a cooking video. So I'm not going to fully get into every little reason why I'm not eating certain things. But I do always want to share with you, the knowledge that I have. And the big reason that I'm not having the tortillas from Old El Paso is because they are a wheat product. They are not organic. And non-organic wheat is usually high in glyphosate, and yes, usually the levels are below what is accepted, except that everything in our life has been sprayed with glyphosate, and it is really, really hard to avoid these days. And glyphosate can cause major nervous system damage, cancer, gastrointestinal issues, liver damage, reproductive issues, the list goes on. So although I'm definitely eating things like that when I go out to eat and when people bring things to my house and I go to other people's houses, I try not to bring it into my house so that we can try and, keep our guts as healthy as possible. And so an alternative, in order to make what I believe is the healthiest homemade taco ever, I love to make homemade sourdough tortillas. And I do have this recipe in another video, which I will link down below, as well as on my app. And my app has all of my family-friendly real food recipes as we go through this journey of kind of avoiding the processed foods and making things on our own. That's where you're going to find everything in the app, and that is down in the description box if you want to join there. So I make my own sourdough tortillas once a week, and we have plenty, and that way we can always have tacos. And when you're ready to make tacos, just wrap them in foil and cook them at 350 degrees while you brown your ground beef. So once you have your tortillas, you want to brown some either grass-fed ground beef or organic turkey or ground chicken or whatever your favorite taco filling may be. You can do black beans too. And then once that's browned, you just want to drain out any excess fat, and then we can just add in the seasoning. So we just make homemade seasoning here. To your cooked protein, you want to add a tablespoon of chili powder, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, a half teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano. All those things are very common spices that you may find in your cabinet. So I have no concerns that you may not have what you need. And if you are someone who's trying to switch out to organic spices, like I get it, you may notice that some of my spices are organic, some of them aren't. I'm just trying to go through them, and as I buy new things, switch over to the organic product. And that's what I'm doing with everything in my life as we try and make this transition. So once all of that's added in, you just want to mix it up and make sure that it's well covered. And basically we're going to let those seasonings bloom for about a minute. And then you can take your meat off the heat and you're going to be ready to serve. And my ideal toppings for this are whatever you like. I like to do tomatoes, shredded lettuce, avocado, and some organic grass-fed cheddar cheese that is freshly shredded. The bags of cheddar cheese are definitely going to have some caking agents on them, and we can avoid that by just shredding our own cheese, and it just takes a minute. I usually just serve it with whatever I have that week, so I'm not always serving it with every single topping. We also use a grass-fed Greek yogurt. I recently learned how to make my own so that it's cheaper than the grocery store. So subscribe if you want to learn how to make that recipe, because I'm going to be showing that very soon. And of course, your favorite salsa or hot sauce is going to make this the perfect dinner for you and your kids. So tonight we're going to have chicken nuggets, mashed potatoes, and peas. My kids are super excited. Unfortunately, all the chicken nuggets at the grocery store, fortunately or unfortunately, you know, maybe it's just such a blessing to be able to make this food for my family and you for yours. But the food at the grocery store, or the chicken nuggets at the grocery store, they're all pretty much washed in oil, as we're finding out with many of the fries. And so I want to try and avoid that and just have a really nice, delicious Whole Foods recipe here. So I'm just going to cut my chicken breasts into nugget sizes. So I always used to love my green like stands, and then I would put it in a Ziploc bag. But as I'm on this health journey, I'm definitely becoming more aware of microplastics, and they are everywhere. They're on everything. But I really am enjoying making choices in my own home to avoid them. So I'm gonna just put this chicken in here. We are gonna end up covering it with some plastic wrap, but hopefully it's not gonna touch the chicken. Again, not a big deal. It's just something that I'm enjoying doing. We're gonna need 2 eggs, 3/4 cup of almond milk. This is my homemade almond milk, and the recipe is on the app, and I'll link the video that it is down and below. This definitely saves us quite a bit of money every month to just make our own almond milk. And I'm not against dairy, it's just sometimes I like almond milk, and especially for this recipe, I like it. I like it in my coffee. So I make it, and again, it gives me a positive feeling. I think the thing about, you know, cooking from scratch or making your own food or whatever is it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. It really has to be about how it makes you feel. And you don't have to feel one way, like I'm a hypocrite because I do this and not that. It's your life, and I really feel like there's no judgment. It's just a matter of what you're enjoying doing and what you're feeling good about doing for your family. So this is the Grillo's pickle juice, 3/4 cup. So these are like the Chick-fil-A version. Chick-fil-A has pickle juice, I guess, in their chicken nuggets. And these are a really good brand because they're very low ingredient. You're looking at just cucumbers, brine. That's it. Everything's right in here. So you're not going to be surprised by anything. Some of the pickles these days actually have dyes in them. And I have chosen to avoid the dyes because my kids, honestly, they just react to them. Like, they know how it feels when they have a dye. And yeah, they think it's really cool that they might go wild, or one of mine will cry just like for no reason after having red dye. It's happened multiple times. And this is, you know, well documented in other countries too. So it's not like we're just trying to find reasons for things. But they're kids, so they're funny, because they'll be like, ooh, we're gonna have dye, we're excited. Anyway, I try to avoid it in my regular cooking, and some of the pickles have it in there, which is wild. Not red 40, I think it's like yellow. But Grillo's are the superior pickle anyway, they're so yummy. In a bind, I also used Greek yogurt in this once before instead of almond milk, and it was really good. So that's an alternative option. You can always use regular milk too. Like I said, I like the almond milk, but those are both options for you. Sometimes you just want to use what you have, and you may not be an almond milk fan. All right, you just know this is gonna make this chicken so good. So you can marinate this up to 24 hours or like overnight. It's about noon here, so we're gonna do ours for 4 hours. So to coat the chicken, I'm using 1.5 cups of, I have some spelt flour, but I don't think I have 1.5 cups, so I might have to add some regular flour too. I'm gonna do 1/2 tablespoon of coconut sugar just for a little tang. A teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of dry mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and a teaspoon of salt. And then just give that a good mix until everything is well incorporated. And then there are a couple different ways to make this. You can do an air fryer or you can also do baked in the oven, and both recipes are on the app. Today I'm going to show you the air fryer version. So I just take out each of the pieces of chicken and put them into the mixture so they're nice and well covered. I did spray down that air fryer basket pretty good with some, I think that was like air fryer spray from Primal Kitchen, but I also have an olive oil sprayer now that I like to use for something like that. And so you just want them well coated. I have also since made this recipe again and just put like a bunch of the pieces of chicken into the bowl at a time, so you don't have to do them individually, and then just pull them out with tongs, and that worked really well too. So to save yourself a little bit of time, you can just do it that way. And then you want to cook these in the air fryer at 375 degrees for about 12 minutes until they're fully cooked through. You want to make sure they hit that 165 degree internal temperature, and also make sure to flip them halfway through. They do get a little sticky on the bottom, so you want to use like a nice a spatula that really like pushes against the bottom to kind of pull that dough or batter up with it. It's also not a huge deal if you lose a little bit of the batter. They're not going to be like perfectly, completely covered always. And that's just like, that's the name of the game with the homemade game. And you know what? We're not deep frying them, so it is what it is. And they end up being amazing. So we had them with mashed potatoes and peas, and my kids love them. I have also since done a big batch of these in the oven, and then I put the sheet once it cools off into the freezer and freeze them, and then pull them out and then just put them in containers to keep them in the freezer. And that works really well too. And all those instructions are also on the app for you if you want to go snag this recipe and make them for your kids. They are truly amazing. Okay, next up we're making a sourdough crust pizza. One of our favorites was Red Baron pizza. And yes, I felt like I was the Baroness. I was having the best time ever. But when I look at the ingredients, the biggest problem for me in this, and this is just by like quick pick out of something that I don't like, is the BHT and BHA. That is actually banned in European countries. So if it's banned there, why is it allowed here? So unfortunately, we're not going to be buying the Red Baron pizza anymore. And I had to come up with an alternative, especially one that, ideally we're looking for lower glucose spikes, and just more real whole food ingredients. So I learned how to make my own sourdough pizza crust that I'm going to show you now. And we're also going to make our own sauce, and I grated my own cheese. And this was the best pizza my husband said that I have ever made. We really, really enjoyed it. So I always say cook once, eat at least twice, or as much as you possibly can. So I ended up making double this recipe. So I started with 8 cups of flour in the bottom of my mixing bowl with the dough hook, 3 cups of water, a cup of sourdough starter. This was active starter, 4 teaspoons of salt, and 4 tablespoons of olive oil, which you'll see I added a little bit later because I kind of forgot to add it at first. And you know what? That's okay. So you're going to mix that dough for about 10 minutes until it creates this, like what you would see a regular dough ball, and it's going to pass what's called the window pane test. So that means that you can basically pull it and it's not going to break apart, but it is going to get see-through. So I'm just going to put this in an oiled bowl, and we're going to cover it and let it sit for 8 hours. Just got home, and of course it's like the warmest day of the year. So far, it's March, but it's 65 degrees. I drove by a playground, and there were so many cars they couldn't fit in the parking lot. That is New Hampshire. It's 65 degrees in March. So this was like, whoa, huge. So we're going to have a delicious pizza dough that's like way proofed up. So we're going to roll this out, and I've got my oven preheating. I've got a stone in, pizza stone in the oven. I love to use the pizza stone. You don't have to, but it makes it nice and crispy. I'm going to cook up these mushrooms for my pizza because I like that, but you can put whatever toppings you want on your pizza. Okay, for the homemade sauce, I did 3 times the recipe again so that I could freeze a bunch of it, and I am going to be taking a canning class soon, so hopefully I can learn to can things like this, but the freezer works really well too. I used 3 15-ounce cans of tomato sauce, 18 ounces of tomato paste. So each can is about 6 ounces. So if you're making, just one times, you would do just one of those cans of tomato paste, the normal size that you find at the grocery store. 6 teaspoons of dried oregano, so important in Italian cooking. And this pizza sauce is literally so good. You're going to love it. 6 tablespoons of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon and a half of salt, a teaspoon and a half of garlic powder, and a teaspoon and a half of onion powder, and then about a half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, and 2 to 3 teaspoons of sugar, and I use coconut sugar for this, and just mix that in. I mean, the sugar does really help cut down on the acidity. It makes it tangy. I don't love adding a ton of added sugar, but in this case, we're using coconut sugar, which works out really well. It's delicious. So I was able to freeze 2 other portions of that after cooking this evening. And then I was able to portion out my dough. So I have my huge ball of dough here. I've got my baking mat and a bunch of flour to make sure you have a really well floured surface. You can see it's almost sticking, which is why you want to have that oiled bowl before you put it in. And then I just use my bench scraper to divide this into 8 portions. So you technically can make 8 crusts, and these are pretty decent sized pizzas. For my family this evening, we actually only needed 3 pizzas to feed us. So we were able to put 5 of them in the freezer. And I always find that if you have a circle and you just kind of do it like a pizza pie, so we're doing pizza for a pizza, that will help you divide your dough evenly. You can also use a scale, but with this much dough, it's difficult to weigh out properly. And I always find that it's not a huge deal in the situation where you're making pizza crusts. If one's a little bit thicker than another, it's not gonna break your situation. And then I rolled each one just into a little ball and then put it back in the bowl so that they could kind of hang out there until I was ready to roll them out. And then for each pizza crust, I rolled it out with my French baking pin. And I did use my hands a little bit. I have nails on, so it was kind of difficult for me. You can kind of use like your knuckles and go around. But honestly, I used to work at Bertucci's, and they don't even, use their hands to do it. They just roll it out. So if you have a roller, you're going to be fine rolling it out into, what seems like a really good sized circle. And it's a little bit more than an eighth of an inch thick, but you can see how pretty this dough looks. Like it's literally perfectly flat, and it has so much elasticity, and it really puffed up nicely when we cooked the pizza. I mean, it tasted delicious, and especially on that pizza stone, it crisped right up on the bottom. So it was really a big win. And then when you're ready to assemble, I like to use a semolina flour or cornmeal on the bottom of a pizza peel, and then place the dough on top of that. And then you can top it with whatever toppings you like. So I'm just going to show you a very simple pepperoni. We used our pizza sauce, and then I shredded my own mozzarella so that we're not having those caking or those anti-caking agents in there, and sprinkled that over. I also find that just melts so much better. Like that's what the real pizzerias use. They don't have the kind that has that stuff on the outside at all, because this is how real cheese is supposed to melt. And then I ended up using the Whole Foods pepperoni, but it's not my favorite. I really like the Applegate pepperoni because that's a grass-fed pepperoni. But either way, you can top your pizza with literally whatever you want to. I also did a white pizza that had those mushrooms on it and some garlic, and then I put a little drizzle of truffle oil over the top. I mean, it was amazing. So when you do cook this, you want to cook this at 475 degrees for about 13 minutes. And obviously cook it to your liking. If you like it a little under, cook it like that. If you like it nice and crispy on top, you can even throw the broiler on for a minute just to get those brown spots. And phenomenal. We had an incredible pizza night at home. We saved a ton of money by not going out. We probably spent about the same as we might spend on a Red Baron. And we didn't get the BHT and BHA and added ingredients that we didn't need. And now I have 5 pizza crusts and 2 packages of pizza sauce in my freezer ready to go for 2 more pizza nights for us, which is going to be just incredible. Maybe I'll have friends over and I'll make all 5. I mean, what a great way to cook once and eat more than one time and avoid those chemicals. So I hope you love this video. I hope if you are also trying to, get into like the idea of looking at what's in your food and eating more whole foods, I encourage you to subscribe and follow along. And if you want any of these recipes and all the recipes I talked about, go down to the description box and check out my meal planning and recipe app that is completely ad-free. It is really a win-win. And I'll see you next time.